Israeli Knesset has passed a law mandating the death penalty as the default punishment for Palestinians who are found guilty of deadly attacks against Israelis. The law passed 62 to 48. Benjamin Netanyahu himself came in to the chambers to vote yes on this. This was really backed by the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who, as I'm sure many of you have seen on TV, is the ultra right-wing supremacist head of the aptly named Jewish Power Party. He, after the passage of the bill, was seen celebrating with champagne on the floor of the parliament as well. Now, the law applies specifically to Palestinians. We need to understand this. This does not apply to Israelis. It applies to Palestinians who kill Israelis, Israelis who routinely kill Palestinians, even outside military operations, such as, Israeli settlers dealing with, torturing and killing Palestinians in the West Bank, which is outside of the Gaza war zone. They will never face the death penalty, so it does not apply to them. That's, an indication of what this leads to. This is, of course, not an accident. This has been engineered this way. Legal experts who look at it know that it's been, engineered this particular way. Now, the law, it amends the military court rules in the occupied West Bank. These are courts that have jurisdiction over only Palestinians. They do not have jurisdiction over Israelis. So what we have here is a two-tier system. One tier that protects its people, which deals with Israeli settlers, which is a civil law system. So you have civilians dealing with this, a civilian setup. And then what you have is a military law setup, which is there to deal with Palestinians, and honestly does not afford any real protections there. Now, these military courts aren't manned by regular judges. These are uniformed IDF judges, IDF personnel, who will now decide whether a Palestinian lives or dies. And let's be clear here. A military court is there to do what the rest of the military is, and that is to fight a war. It's not there to look for justice and to provide justice. And to give you some evidence of this, the conviction rate of Palestinians before these military courts is 96%. These aren't statistics I'm making up. These have been quoted by the US State Department, by a range of human rights organizations, including Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem. B'Tselem also mentions that much of these convictions are based on confessions that have been extorted out of these individuals by torture or by duress. Right? Just recently, we've seen where a 22-month-old child, to extract a confession from his father, was tortured with cigarette burns and with sharp objects inserted into his legs. This is the type of justice system that we're looking at, and the mechanism that we're looking at. Now, let's compare that to the Israeli settlers who commit crimes against Palestinians, say, in the West Bank. The conviction rate there is interestingly quite low. It's 4%. So where you have 96% for Palestinians, you have 4%. And these are tried in civilian courts with all the human rights guarantees that the Israeli system offers to its citizens. 4% is the number of convictions that you get after it goes to trial. The vast majority of cases do not even go beyond the investigation stage. So people are not indicted. You don't even have a trial in those cases. This shows, there's a word for this, and that word is apartheid, where there is such a different application of law. Now, under international law, you have the Rome Statute, which is the statute that creates the International Criminal Court and also the offenses under the International Criminal Court. You also have the 1973 International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of Crimes of Apartheid. And apartheid is defined as a system of institutionalized domination and oppression by one racial or ethnic group over another, sustained through inhumane acts. Now, what we've just described really fits that definition perfectly. You have two populations, one piece of land, two entirely separate legal systems, one offering impunity for Israeli settlers and one offering the gallows, literally the death penalty. Now, this isn't, a glitch in this thing. This has been engineered. It is how people like Itamar Ben-Gvir, it is how their politics runs. It is on this basis that their politics works. And that's why it is, further evidence, this particular law that's been passed, further evidence of the apartheid regime that has been recognized by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and a number of governments more so now. At the Nuremberg trials, you had prosecutors introduce a concept that was critical to achieving the accountability that the Holocaust deserved, and that concept was system criminality. The argument was that Nazi Germany wasn't simply a collection of bad actors, of individuals, but it was a criminal enterprise at the institutional level. The state itself, its courts, its laws, its bureaucrats, its functionaries, they had all been weaponized as instruments of persecution and extermination and genocide, and to be able to commit all those war crimes that they did and all of those things. So individual guilt mattered, but it was really the guilt of the system that enabled, rewarded, and legitimized these individuals. So if we were to apply the same rules that applied to Nazi Germany to Israel today, we have a court system that, on the one hand, gives a 96% conviction rate for Palestinians. And on the other hand, Israeli settlers, of the cases that make it to trial, only 4% lead to conviction. We have a new law that mandates the death penalty only for Palestinians, not for Israelis. It does not give even a right of appeal for these Palestinians. The death penalty has to be enacted within 90 days of the punishment being given. We have these individuals, these bloodthirsty individuals, celebrating on the floor of parliament with champagne. You have soldiers and settlers who are operating with near total impunity, whether it's in Gaza or in the West Bank. Now, these really, you can't just chalk them up to isolated incidents or, bad actors or a few bad apples. This is a system. It's system criminality. And when a system is designed from the ground up to oppress, dehumanize, and now execute one group of people, the Nuremberg framework tells us what this is: system criminality. The last death penalty that was actually executed in Israel was for Adolf Eichmann, who was a Nazi. He was captured and then brought to trial in Israel. The next could be a Palestinian. It could be a Palestinian man, woman, or child. It's sad, but it's taken only 64 years for Israel to come full circle, it seems.